if you write like this, they will mark it wrong.
Yeah, wrong. Yeah.
Because it's all in capital letters.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is make sure that you write
Only my
in lowercase.
Yeah.
So at the start of the sentence,
Yeah.
capital letter,
big letter,
yes,
Yeah.
and then
small big letter.
why is that a big letter?
Name.
Because your name.
Because it's my name,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, and you all know the letters, the difference between the letters, between big letters and small letters. Yeah,
Okay.
because some of them change, like A changes quite a bit, and E. So just remember when you're writing to write in small letters. Okay. The next part is as well not to write in bullet points. Okay, so if I was writing, my name is Jack, I live in Kilkeel. That there's good.
Yeah.
But if I wrote, my name is Jack, and then I live in Kilkeel, these are called bullet points.
Mm.
Okay? And when we're writing, we want to write in sentences.
Sentence.
Okay? So not bullet points.
This one, if no sentence, have a point.
So
Inside.
here we have this is fine.
Sentence. Yeah.
This is continuing. My name is Jack. I live in Kilkeel, and then I could say there are 5 people in my family. Well, actually, I should write that. No. There are
Only words.
5 people in my. So that there is fine. That's good. But if I wrote this like this is then wrong. Let me see.
Pwede pa
Let's see now.
naman.
So if I said my name is
Jack.
Jack, and then instead of writing I live, if I go I live in Kilkeel, and then
Step by step.
there
There
are.
are 5 people.
So do you see the difference?
Yeah.
So it's really, bullet points are like a list. So when you're writing, just be careful you don't do this. You want to be writing
Sentence.
in sentences. Okay? And then the last thing is paragraphs. Now, do you remember what I said about paragraphs?
Yes.
So, paragraphs are short pieces of text. So, for example, here we have a paragraph,
Yeah.
and then a space,
Yeah.
and then a paragraph. So, remember to write in paragraphs. Now, the question I gave you last week was a little bit difficult because it was just tell me about yourself. But when you do the exam, and this is the practice one we're going to do today, what they do is they give you 3 things to talk about. So you can put one thing in one paragraph, the second thing in another paragraph,
Yeah.
and then you can split it up. Okay, so I'll explain that a little bit later and it'll make more sense. So any questions from the presentation? That it's quite important that so the first thing is presentation, how it looks. The second thing then is length.
Like.
Now in some of your writing it was quite short, And for the exam, it needs to be a little bit longer. Okay, now again, the question that I gave you, there wasn't a lot to write about, maybe. But you just need to make sure that you write a little bit more sometimes. Okay, so that is really linked to vocabulary. So if I give you a topic that you don't know many words about, it means it will probably be a little bit shorter. So that's why it's important to continue reading outside of our class here, because the more you read, the more words you will learn, and then you will be able to use those words in writing. So length, just make sure that you write sometimes a little bit more, okay? When you do the test, for one of the questions, it will be 150 words, and one of them will be 250. Last week wrote almost 150 words. I'm not really worried about the number at the moment. Just if you can try to write a little bit more, okay? So that's the length. So that's kind of the general. Then we have the use of I am. Now, some of you used I am, but you used it in a different way. Does anyone know what other way we can write that in English? I am. There's a way of shortening it.
I'm.
I'm. Good. Now be careful when you're writing that, because we have I am, I'll put that there, I am, and you rightly said I'm. Now,
Quit.
quite a lot of you wrote I'm, which is correct, but you forgot something.
Short
Yeah.
letter.
The little, it's called an apostrophe.
Yeah, apostrophe.
So you need a little mark there, and that little mark represents the A.
Yeah.
Okay?
Less A.
So when you're writing, yes, you can use that, that's good, but remember the little mark.
Apostrophe.
So there are other words that you can shorten in English. So if you say, I do not like,
I like. I did.
how do we shorten this?
I didn't. No.
I don't like, don't.
I don't like.
It's good. So this one here is I
Don't.
Don't
like.
don't. And remember
Yeah.
Apostrophe.
our little apostrophe, and that represents the O.
Yeah.
I don't like.
I don't like.
So just when you're writing that, that's fine and that's fine. That's good.
Yeah.
That's what we use in English. Just remember the little mark. That's quite important. Okay, so I don't like. So if you just remember that. Good.
I don't like drink coffee.
Okay,
I like coffee, whiskey.
now I'm going to give you a little test. Does anyone remember what any of these letters stand for?
SPG.
SP, I mentioned it last week.
Spilling.
One of them, good. So the first one we have is
Spilling.
spelling. So
Punctuation.
punctuation. Does anyone know the last one?
Grammar.
Good. And then grammar. So most of the things that we need to improve on is to do with this, okay? So we'll start with spelling. Now, overall your spelling was very good. So I was very happy with how you were spelling words, because in English, spelling is quite difficult.
Yeah.
It's hard to know, because a lot of the words in English, they sound a certain way, but they're pronounced a different way. So for example, if you say through, That's pronounced completely different to how it's spelled. Really, it's pronounced like through,
True.
but in English we have this.
True. Yeah.
I don't know why, but it's there. So some words just to be careful of.
Pa ng E.
If you want to say, I'll just write down some favourite.
Favorite.
So my favourite hobby or my favourite sport. Favourite is spelt like that. Quite difficult. Try something clever. Another one, daughter.
Yeah.
I have a daughter.
No.
It's spelled like
ielts. Yeah.
daughter. So another quite difficult one. And then if I was to write I live in Kilkeel, is it I live or I leave? Which one? One or two?
Live, yeah.
One.
Number one.
One.
Number one, yes.
Yeah, one.
So leave sounds sounds quite
Trees.
similar.
Go away.
But to leave means to go out.
Yeah. To go
To
out.
leave.
Yeah.
So I'm leaving.
I'm leaving.
I'm going away.
Yeah.
So just be careful there with that one. Good. So that third one is your spelling.
I leave far away.
4, 5. Okay, now any questions so far on any of that? We're going to think now a little bit about punctuation. Okay? Punctuation. But any questions before? No.
No, sir.
Okay.
Grabe ba?
It's quite hard going, but it's all quite important. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about punctuation now. So we're going to think about the full stop,
Full stop.
about the comma.
Comma.
Okay. So that looks like what we were looking at a minute ago. But this is when you use it like this. If I'm writing my name is Jack, and then if I use it there, that's a comma.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's on the line. So does anyone know when we use a full stop? When do we use a full stop when
The
we're
end
writing?
of sentence.
When was that?
End of sentence, sir.
Yes,
End of sentence.
end of sentence, perfect. So the full stop is used at the, I'll put a wee arrow, end of a sentence. End of a sentence. Okay, so when you finish a sentence, you put a full stop. So I have an example here. If I can write it. Belfast is
Capital
the capital, perfect.
Grabe ba?
Or you can just say capital of Northern Ireland. Okay, so here, the end of a sentence,
Yeah.
I need to add
Full stop.
a full stop. Now, if I was to write something after this, what do I need to do?
Big letter.
Big letter and a space. Okay?
Space.
So if I want to say it is and then describe it. So at the end of a sentence, you use the full stop. And then the next word has to be a big letter. Okay? Big letter. So that one is maybe the easier of the two. So end of a sentence. Now the comma is a little bit different.
End of piano. Period.
The comma is used when you want to make a pause
Yeah,
in the
like a
sentence.
pause, yeah.
So on television now you can pause, so it stops, but
Yes.
it doesn't stop forever.
Yeah.
It stops for a little
A
while.
little while, yeah.
So the comma is used as a pause. I'll give you an example here.
Dali yung full stop. Parang break ka, full stop.
So if I want to talk a little bit about Belfast, it is a large,
City.
I could say large city. If I want to say another, what's this word?
Big.
Big, yeah. So it's describing. If I want to
Yeah.
use another describing word, for example, a large, busy city,
Busy city.
I need to add a comma here because I need to pause between that. So if I'm speaking and I say it is a large, I pause, busy city. I don't say it is a large, busy city. I say it is a large, busy city.
City.
So when you're using two describing words, two adjectives, you add a comma, and that makes a pause in the sentence. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So any questions on that? Any questions? This is very important when you're writing, because sometimes it's easy to write a really, really long sentence without any stops. So remember to use a full stop at the end of a sentence. So at the end of your writing, and then you can use a comma as a pause. Okay. There. So a full stop and a comma. There are other punctuation features in English, but those are the most important. So those are the most important.
Sir.
The next thing that I just want to talk to you about is some grammar.
Yes, sir. Grammar.
Grammar. So grammar is quite difficult in English. So first thing to remember is
Inom kasi kayong inom eh.
when you're writing in English, I'll use the red pen actually.
Ayaw inom ng mga alak. Puro kape.
I walk
Kung tatama mamaya sa
Mamaya.
lumayo sa 23.
Ayaw ba?
Pati luto na.
12 sa 23.
I walk. My
Okay.
with
So
I walk my dog.
when you're writing in English, you need certain things to make a sentence. So the first thing you need
From-
is
Ako ay
from grammar.
you need to know
Wait.
who is doing what.
I walk,
So
walk my dog.
I walk my dog. The first thing we need to know is who is walking the dog.
you.
I.
Yeah.
I. So in some languages, well, I'll explain that in a moment.
Yan ang mali.
We need to know who is doing
My
what. I.
You.
So I. You can also have, for example, I, you, he, she.
She.
That all tells us who it
I
is.
walking dog.
The next part, I walk, is what is called the verb. So it's what's being done. So I walk. So I walk. You could say I run.
Yeah.
I swim.
Swim.
I work. They're all doing words. They all tell us what is happening. And then the last part, my dog, tells us the object, so the thing. So I walk my dog tells us the thing. So what I'm really trying to explain here is in some languages you don't need this part. I'm not sure about your language, but in some languages, for example in Spanish, the Spanish don't really use the I or the you because they know who's doing what by this part. But in English, you always need the I or the you. So always remember to include that. Okay? So I walk my dog. So we always need to know who is doing it and what they're doing. So if you wrote, I work at the harbour, work on a fishing boat, that doesn't make sense. You need to always say, I work on a fishing boat. So always remember to include the I. Okay? The I. The I. Okay, we're nearly there, because I know it's a lot of information. The next part is, some of you when you were writing, which was good, you wrote about what happened in the past. So what happened when you lived in the Philippines and things like that. So just remember when you're writing about things in the past, it changes a little bit. So I live
In Philippines.
is the present.
Yes.
That's what's happening now. I live in Kilkeel. If I were to write last year I
Live.
live Philippines. Now,
Philippines.
is that correct? I say last year I lived in the Philippines.
Yes.
Something changes. This changes.
Yeah.
B.
So it's still
Present.
that, but we're talking here about the past.
Yeah, past.
This is
Present.
the past.
Yeah.
So something has to change here.
Last pass.
How do we say
Pass year.
last year I? It's not live, but I lived.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about
Yeah.
Live.
Past.
if you're talking about the past, this changes,
Pass year I live in the Philippines.
and that's the same for all of the verbs. They all change a little bit. So I work in Kilkeel. I worked
Worked. Yeah.
in the Philippines. So if you're talking about the past,
Past.
and I'll come around now in a moment, just be aware that this changes a little bit. Okay?
Adi.
Okay, last thing, you'll be glad to know, because it's a lot, I know, but I want to get all of this clear. So, one of the things that you might find hard in English is knowing when to use in
Is.
and on.
In on.
So, when do I use in, when do I use on? So, when you're talking about countries, so a lot of you wrote about the Philippines. Philippines, okay? So we have the Philippines. Just be careful how the Philippines is spelt. It's quite hard to spell.
Yeah.
So there's one L and there's two P's.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about a country,
Philippines.
You can't say I lived the Philippines. You have to use in good. So I lived in the Philippines. And this is the same with any country. So for example, I live in Northern Ireland. I live in England. So always remember the in. In. And in English, instead of just saying Philippines, we say the Philippines.
I live in Philippines. I live
So
in
that's together. So if I said I live in Philippines, that wouldn't really make sense to someone who speaks English. You need to say I live in the Philippines. So that's the way it's said there. Now a lot of you also spoke about fishing boats. So just remember when you're talking about a vehicle, a fishing boat I suppose is a vehicle. Do we all remember what a vehicle is? I'll write it down. Vehicle. A vehicle. A vehicle is like a car
Yeah.
or a bus
Bus.
or a train. So when we're speaking about vehicles, you say I work
On.
on a boat.
Bus. Boat.
I work on a boat. Now, that sounds a little bit strange because when you think about on in English, it's usually on top of. And you don't work on the boat.
Yeah.
You work in the boat.
Yeah, in the boat.
But in English, when we talk about a vehicle, you use on a boat. I work on a boat. So those two in you use with countries. I live in the Philippines. I live in Spain. On with vehicles. So I work on a bus. I work on a boat.
I drop on a boat.
Okay.
Store. Can you also in the grocery or store?
I work. So it's not a vehicle.
Yeah.
So you would say I work in a grocery store. It's only on is only used with vehicles.
Vehicles.
Okay, so a car, train, bus. Okay.
Okay, sir. Perfect.
Any questions from that?
No, sir.
No. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to explain what our next practice writing is, and I'm then going to go around each of you individually, so one by one, to talk about how you got on. And for the others who are waiting, I want you to plan what the next writing is, okay? So
Ayan na.
I'll give it out and then I'll talk a little bit about it to you.
Labas na ng Uber nyo.
Alam na this.